Hi, Armoured Pants here, and I have another video for you in the French line. This is the Tier 4 tank destroyer, the SAU 40, and we have a complete guide for you. As always, we will start looking at the tech spec, and we will do that using blitzharrier.com, which is a great asset, and an asset that should be used by all blitzers. Certainly, that would be my recommendation. Now, this is a typical tank destroyer and has those attributes that you associate with tank destroyers. Very good gun, relatively mobile, not so much armor. And you know, for its tier, it does have a big gun, 75mm, and it has a decent reload, and it does decent damage. It has good penetration numbers, as you can see here. It's doing good damage for its tier 130, and the penetration of 100. That's going to go through everything in tier 4, most things in tier 5. The APCR pumps that up to 129, and even on HE you've got 38mm of pen, which is really good and will go through light tanks and a lot of medium tanks in the side and the back. The muzzle velocity though is poor. It's very poor for a tank destroyer, and even with supercharge it's still less than 1000 meters per second. Maybe to compensate for that, the aiming time is very good. The dispersion is very good, as you can see. And if you use refined gun, you're going to have very little penetration loss over distance. It also is surprisingly agile and mobile, even though it doesn't have a turret, and it's very good on traverse. Now, looking at it here, we see though it has no armor. It also has a huge weakness, and it's this horrible cupola that sticks up at the top, and it is a shell magnet. And this is quite common in some French tanks. The BD or the heavy tank in tier 5 is the same. It's a really high target as well, so even if you go behind cover, this stupid cupola is still sticking out on top, and an experienced player will just pump rounds into it. And even though you're being a good player, you're doing the right thing, going into cover, this cupola is so high it can often stick out over the top of a rock formation or something like that. Or if you're using the hulk of a burned out enemy tank or one of your allies to hide behind, your cupola will stick out over the top of that, and it really does present a big easy target for the enemy. And I think it's a significant weakness on this tank, which already has a weakness in that it doesn't have any armor, and then they give you this bloody thing on top, which is basically just a bullseye for the enemy. You can see here that on the sides you can create some potential angles for side scraping. You see that you're to almost 200 meters of effective armor, but I would not risk it. There's so many other vulnerable areas on it that I would just suggest that you don't try for it. And also the cupola is always going to be there as a target. So you should assume when playing this tank that everything is going to go through you, everything is going to pen you, and then if you do get a bounce, just put it down to blind luck and take it as a bonus. As I said, it recommends there it's good in 1v1 brawl, and it is, because the traverse speed on it is surprisingly good. And if you've ever come up against one, you will have noticed that. So the traverse is very good. It turns like on a sixpence, has good access of turn, it pivots very well in that access. It has 10 degrees of gun depression, which is great, 20 degrees of elevation, which is fantastic. And really the only downside to its gun handling is that relatively low muzzle velocity, so you will need to know how to do deflection shooting. If you don't know what that is, please look at the tank destroyer guide I have on channel, where there's examples of it and it's clearly explained, because you will need it for this type of tank destroyer. And later, as you move up to the S35, the tier 5 French tank destroyer, you will see that that has a similar problem. It has quite low muzzle velocity for its tier as well, so deflection shooting is necessary. Now, people have asked me before about doing the setup on the tank, so I've just purchased this, so let's set it up. I've said before about using experience to upgrade the tank. I've run out of XP, so then I'm actually going to do gold, because I really believe you should upgrade as quickly as possible. If you've got the XP, use it. If you've got the gold, use it, because the gun handling on the top gun compared to the lower gun there's a huge difference. I'm going to go for camo. You need camo on tank destroyers. You get an extra 4% of concealment. And a little tip, of course, if you're not aware already, that rare camo works on all map types, so you just buy it once and you can save yourself some credits. Let's stock up with the provisions, limited of course in tier 4. And I'm going to load out some HE here because I get a nice pen on the HE, and it will go through, as I said, all light tanks and many medium tanks in its tier. So I'll up 6 rounds of that, 21 rounds of normal AP, and I'll roll up a few APCR in case I am unlucky and get up tiered. Let's look at the equipment. I am going to set up the equipment as follows. I am going to go with gun rammer to get the reload down. I'm going to go with supercharge and refined gun for long distance shots. I'm going to go with the engine accelerator to help me get into the spots as quickly as possible. I'm going to go with toolbox, and then as I said, I'm going to go back and I'm going to take the extra hit points on the armour because it has no armour as such, so let's might as well take the extra hit points. So let's roll. It's Fort Despair, which is a map of course that you are familiar with because you play it more than any other map in the lower tiers. So here you will see I'm going to go to the classic TD spot in Fort Despair. You can see that I am going up here to the right hand side of the castle ruins, and I'm going to see if I can get any shots on. Unfortunately, none of my team have gone to spot, so even though I've taken up this classic TD position, it's unlikely I'm going to get any shots here because nobody's gone to spot on the right hand side of the map. So I decide to move. I don't think there's anything doing here, so I decide to move up. There's no point having a good gun with lots of pain that does lots of damage when there are no targets. So I'm moving towards the targets here. There's not ideal tactics for this tank because, as I said, it has no real armour, and getting exposed out in the open is not a good idea. But I'm using the cover here, the soft and hard cover. I fluffed the first shot, but I get a shot in here on this guy. Get a nice 124 alpha rolling, which is very nice now for tier 4. I'm already reloaded, and then we can clear him. As you see, the aiming time is very good on this tank. Now I decide to move forward in support of the Hetzer. Now you'll notice I ignore the guy on the right hand side, and that turns out actually to be a bit of a problem in a few minutes because I get into a brawl here with this D2, and the D2 actually is not getting shots on me. I brawl with him quite well. I'm actually putting the front of the tank facing him. I'm not giving him much of a target, and I'm putting rounds into him and I clear him. But you'll see, and let's slow it down here, I'm taking a lot of damage, and it's actually from the tank behind me. He's getting a lot of easy shots into my butt. Now, this is an example of your teammates not really playing for the team. There was one of my allies engaging with him, and he obviously disengaged and moved off and allowed him just to fire into me. And that is pretty poor team play from my ally. Watch the Queen's speech message. I did not watch the Queen's speech, actually. I can tell you that. So watching speeches on Christmas Day is not my idea of fun. Now there's a bit of a dirty trick coming up here, or let's say more like a tip. As you can see, we're in a kind of a brawl here with this Su-85B. He has a big gun and he's about to kill me. So what I do is I put my ally in between him and me. My ally still has full hit points, so he can take one hit, and then just when I reload and ready to fire, I use my superior aiming time to take him out. So not really a dirty trick per se, but perhaps not the most chivalrous thing to do. But the A20 had lots of hit points and could afford to take a hit. I could not, and you know, if I had been taken out of the game, well, I wouldn't have been too happy. So there you go. So this is something that can be done and can be used in situations like that. Be a little bit clever and to use your allies. You can also, by the way, use your enemies. You can put your enemy in between them and the guy trying to shoot you. Beautiful shot there, lovely alpha roll, set him on fire, 200 damage in one shot, really nice at tier 4. And that gives me my 4th kill, so I get the top gun, and then I'm going to move up here and see if I can get another shot into the Panzer 4D, get some additional damage. I felt there was a mastery badge coming on here because I'd done a lot of damage, so I thought if I can get one more shot in and one more kill, it should guarantee it. And I get one more shot in, nice, get some extra damage as well from the fire, and there, set him on fire, get the gold ribbon for setting him on fire, and that should deliver the mastery badge. And it did. so almost 1.3k damage. Not huge, but I think it shows you that this tank is difficult to play, and the level for the mastery badge is not so high. Not even 700 XP delivered the mastery badge there. So you can see, compared to other tier 4 tanks, the bar is not so high, and I think that is an indication of how difficult it is to do well in this tank because of the weaknesses it has, the lack of armour, the low muzzle velocity on the gun, and of course that cupola, which is a huge target. And the fact that you have no armour, it means you're going to get penned almost every time. It's difficult to get bounces, so that means that you have to be more clever, more intelligent in how you play this tank. It does not have the capability to bounce some shots and to get into tough brawls. You really need to. Its only advantage really in the brawling is the fact that it has a big gun and it can traverse quickly. But generally, you will take hits and take damage. Therefore, I believe it is a difficult tank destroyer to play. It has a lot of weaknesses, as we discussed, but it has decent gun with good pen. The gun is really nice, I have to say, and you saw there it can do some great damage. That lovely 200 alpha roll we got on the kill. You need to use supercharged though and refined gun because the muzzle velocity is terrible. So therefore, even with the supercharge, it's still less than 1000 meters per second, which is awful for a tank destroyer. 75mm gun has good pen and very good aiming time too. But as I discussed, poor muzzle velocity. I mean, it's less than 1000 meters per second, even with supercharge. And for a tank destroyer, that's pretty bad because your whole game is long distance shooting, and therefore you need to know deflection shooting because that shell takes a long time to go a long distance. So you need to know where your targets will be rather than where they are right now. The cupola is a big problem. It is a big target. To traverse, you need to use the tracks, of course, but the traverse is very good, surprisingly good, and you will surprise a lot of the medium and light tanks you come up with the speed of traverse, and that gun will get on target for you and help you out in brawl situations. So that is one advantage, and as I said, it will take the enemy by surprise. I remember the first time I come up against a South 40 when they were introduced to the game about a year and a half ago. I was really surprised at how quickly it traverses. But that said, it is a tough tank to master because of all the weaknesses. That cupola, its lack of tactics, that, I mean, really just has standard TD play, that's it. But the rewards will serve you well once you're done. Plus, they will serve you well for the S35, which plays very similarly, and that is the next tank up in Tier 5. If you haven't already, please do watch the Tank Destroy Guide on channel. Thank you for watching. Cheers, Mush. Pants out.